All right, let's take a look at this absolute value inequality. When I look at this, I need to be able to determine if I'm dealing with a restraining order or if I'm dealing with a mother hen. But before I can do that, I've got to make sure that I have my absolute value by itself on one side of the inequality. Do I have that? Okay. So what do I do? What kind of situation is this? You're smiling like you have something you want to say.
I don't know if it's going to be wrong. Well,
Take your chances. 50-50 shot. What is it?
well, you move the 5 over the 17.
I can't move the 5 to the 17 yet because it's still inside the absolute value. Huh?
You take away, you make it the absolute value.
I'm not sure I understand you. What do you mean you make it?
I don't think I understand myself either.
Here's something we need to understand about absolute values. You cannot take the absolute value of 5 and then the absolute value of negative 4x. It doesn't work that way because the absolute value acts as a grouping symbol, which means you do the work inside first before you can apply the absolute value. So since we haven't done the work inside and we can't because we don't know what x is, we have to maintain the absolute values. But the absolute value, your distance, has to be less than or equal to 17. So is that is that restraining order or mother hen? Mother hen, you want your distance to be less. I don't want you guys to get away from me. Stay next to me, right? So what that tells me is that if I look on the last page of notes that I had, that means that the stuff inside the absolute value has to be less than or equal to 17. The distance has to be less than or equal to 17, but at the same time it has to be what? It has to be greater than or equal to, if I'm reading from right to left, negative 17. So what it's saying is that the stuff inside the absolute value needs to be between negative 17 and 17. Now I have a three-part inequality and we know how to solve these guys. What would I do first? Subtract them from the 5, or do you mean subtract 5 from everything? I need to subtract 5 from everything because, remember, in a three-part inequality, you have to keep your variables where? In the middle. At the very end, x is supposed to be in the middle. So I'm going to subtract 5 from all three parts. So what do we have now? I'll give you a hint. Yeah, negative 22 is less than or equal to what? Negative 4x, don't drop that sign, is less than or equal to what? How do I finish solving this inequality? Divide everything by negative 4. If you don't do this to all three parts, then you don't have a true statement anymore. So what happens with negative 22 over negative 4? It becomes a positive 22 over 4, but when you reduce that, you get what? 11 halves. You get 11 halves, then what? But it was less than. How did it become greater than? I divided by negative, so this becomes greater than what? It's just x, right? And it's over here, it's also going to be greater than what number? Greater than or equal to negative 3. You have to make sure that inequalities make sense when you read these. Being less than at the very beginning meant that I was going to have a three-part inequality. Negative 17 truly is less than 17. Down here, is 11 halves greater than negative 3? On the number line, yes, that is true. Now when I look at this on the number line, you guys may want to rewrite this. It's really up to you. How do I put these numbers on here in the proper order? So negative 3 is more on the left than 11 halves. My x is between these guys, right? If you read this, it says x is greater than or equal to negative 3. If you read this, x is less than or equal to 11 halves. So that means my solutions are where? They're in between. Do I include the endpoints? Why? Not because it's greater than, but because it is the equal to option there. So there we go. But I'm not done here. When you have inequalities, I always ask you to express your answer using interval notation. How do I go from here to interval notation? Bracket what? -3 to what? To 11 halves. Yes?
Question. When you have negative numbers at the bottom, you always flip the signs, right?
When you are multiplying or dividing by a negative on both sides, yes, you change the direction of the inequalities. And that's the only time those inequalities are going to just magically flip around. Okay? Any other questions about that? Okay.